It's 1931, and the Bondurant brothers, oldest Howard, middle brother Forrest, and the youngest brother Jack, are running a successful moonshine business in Franklin County, Virginia. Jack explains how his brother Forrest tells him that they can never die because Howard saw his entire battalion drown in the sea, with him emerging as the only savior. That same year, Forrest and their parents were caught by Spanish lady flu, with only Forrest beating the illness. So they're basically unstoppable. Jack also said that in 1920, a Prohibition Act was passed, making the sales of alcohol illegal. But that's what it looks like, since even the sheriffs bought alcohol from the brothers in secret. Franklin County was known as the world's wettest county because everyone made whiskey. But as for the alcohol these brothers sold, it could be made from just about anything.
So you can see why Forrest felt that way.
The brothers make use of their gas station and restaurant as a disguise for dealing with the assistance of Cricket, Jack's mechanically gifted friend who builds and maintains their stills. One night during their usual rounds, Jack is asked to remain in the car while Howard and Forrest go to deliver the booze. However, Jack gets impatient and curious and goes to peep at them. He then gets into trouble with a robber, asking him for all he's got.
Here, I'll take care of this. Hey, you, come on out.
Luckily for him, Forrest and Howard return just in time to take care of the issue. Afterward, they head to a party to try and sell off the rest of the goods. There, Jack picks interest in Bertha, the local preacher's daughter. But Howard warns him to be careful of her dad if he wants her. The following day, Forrest walks into the restaurant to meet a woman named Maggie Beaufort, sitting and waiting for his arrival. She introduces herself and offers to work as a waitress as she hears that the restaurant is looking for one. Forrest then asks her what a lady like her is doing in a place like this. She then explains to him that she's only looking for a quiet place to settle down after having it rough in the city. It turns out that Maggie is a financially struggling dancer who's seeking greener pastures.
Do I get the job?
So Forrest is left with no choice but to hire her. Someday later, Jack gets to witness a rum runner, Floyd Banner, shoot two federal agents dead in broad daylight for trying to arrest him. After Floyd leaves the scene, Jack picks up his shells and rushes to meet Cricket, knowing fully well that Cricket is a big fan, to tell him what he has just witnessed. He then gives Cricket one of the shells and suggests that they use it to make Lucky Charms. Cricket then shows him the new method of storing and making their alcohol by using the plumbing system.
Thank you.
Not long after, the station is visited by a newly appointed U.S. Marshal, Charlie Rakes from Chicago, who's accompanied by the sheriff, Pete, and corrupt attorney Mason Wardell. Pete informs Forrest that Rakes wants to work it out with them, so everyone, including Forrest, gets to do their business, while he turns a blind eye. But Forrest rudely refuses to comply. He personally warns the attorney not to ever send Rakes to him again if he doesn't want trouble. Later that night, Forrest calls a meeting with his fellow bootleggers, who tries to convince him to just comply with the attorney to make things smooth for them. Forrest then reminds everyone that the Bondurants don't lay down for anyone. He claims that he won't pay anything to Mason Wardell and doesn't even plan to pay even the next attorney that comes in. He tries to implore the others to unite against Rakes and Mason, but they all turn his offer down. The following day, Sheriff Pete tries to reason with Rakes about Forrest, but Rakes only gets excited when he hears from Pete that Forrest claims to be indestructible. And this is only the start of a beautiful war between Rakes, who already feels insulted, and the unshakable Forrest Bondurant.
Do I look stupid to you?
Meanwhile, Jack is upset about the fact that Forrest doesn't want him involved in their business on account that he's way too inexperienced. Forrest doesn't even let him drink alcohol yet, but Jack decides to disobey him today. After getting drunk on one bottle, Jack goes to attend a church service as an excuse to see Bertha, but embarrasses himself and runs away, though he has managed to catch her interest. He heads to Cricket's house and walks in on Rakes, who's there to find the Bondurants. Unfortunately for Jack, he gets beaten up by Rakes as a message to his brothers.
Next time I come down real hard.
Later, Forrest reminds Jack that if he truly wants to get into their business, then he will have to put up with occasions like this. However, Forrest is not happy that Jack let himself get beat up, especially by the likes of Rakes. The following day, Rakes sends his men to inform Forrest that they're aware of his illegal dealings. They try to reason with him so they can make the summons disappear, but Howard storms out of the restaurant and beats them up, mostly for trying to intimidate them by beating their little brother up. When it seems to be going too far, Forrest intervenes and asks him to stop. He then tells the men to give his regards to Rakes. Later that night, when Maggie returns home to her apartment, she's approached by Rakes, who lives in the same complex as her. He tries to get something out of her, revealing her past as a dancer, but Maggie tells him to get out of her way. The following day, Howard's is busy loading up the truck for daily sales when Forrest asks him to be back by 11 p.m. to help him deal with some out-of-towners coming to buy alcohol from them. Howard then gives his brother a friendly reminder that he has never let him down and he doesn't plan to. Meanwhile, Jack goes to meet Bertha dressed in his dad's suit. Before they start talking, Bertha reminds Jack that he should be worried if her dad catches him trying to talk to her, but Jack stays and talks to her for a bit, only having to run away before her dad actually catches him. Later that night at the station, Forrest realizes that Howard is a no-show and asks Cricket to close up the place with Maggie. But Forrest comes out to meet Maggie, being harassed by two drunk customers. He beats them up and throws them out of the restaurant. After Maggie closes up the restaurant and leaves, Forrest gets attacked by the two men, who slit his throat and leave him on the floor to his fate. Luckily for him, Maggie returns to look for Forrest, but gets beaten up and assaulted by the men. A piece of information that she hides from Forrest, knowing fully well that Forrest would like to get revenge if he finds out. While Forrest recovers at the hospital, Maggie pays him a visit with her bags. She's not happy about what happened to Forrest, but seeing he's okay, she informs him that she's leaving. Forrest, who seems to have grown fond of her, realizes that this isn't exactly the kind of quiet Maggie came looking for. He then suggests that she stays with them at the station, as that's the only way they can guarantee her safety, at least until those two men are taken care of. Meanwhile, Jack tries to convince Howard that he can get someone to buy all their remaining liquor so they can retire from the business. But Howard is still too angry at himself that he has let Forrest down to listen to Jack. Jack knows that crossing Rakes any further won't do them any good, especially after what happened to Forrest. He goes to the hospital and steals the keys to Forrest's liquor storage room.
Well, hell, need backup, Cricket. Use my partner or what?
Then crosses the county line with Cricket to sell the rest of the liquor. Halfway through their journey, their car runs out of gas right in the middle of the road. Cricket, however, devises a quick means by substituting gas for liquor, which helps them continue their mission. During the delivery, the duo gets attacked by Floyd Banner's crew, who tries to bury them after shooting them. Left with no choice, Jack reveals that he is a Bondurant, prompting Banner to spare them as he admires the Bondurants for standing up to Rakes. Jack gets paid handsomely for the liquor.
I heard what happened to your brother Forrest.
And Banner gives Jack a paper containing the address of his brother's assailants. He also reveals to Jack that the men are former bootleggers who were given a chance to escape punishment for their crimes by working as deputy marshals for Rakes. Jack then proudly returns home the next morning to Forrest, who's back from the hospital and clearly ready to beat his little brother. But Jack starts by explaining what happened and shows Forrest the money. He also passes the note from Banners to his brother and takes his commission before convincing Forrest that they have a chance to get their revenge on those men tonight. With the money he made from his commission, Jack buys a Kodak box camera and goes to see Bertha. He takes a shot of her and also gets one of himself taken by Bertha. He also buys himself a new car and returns home to show it off, only to realize that Forrest and Howard are off to have revenge without involving him again. Maggie tries to stop him, but Jack is already out of the house to go after his brothers. On reaching the location, he realizes that his brothers have already tortured and gotten rid of the men. Since Jack wishes to be part of it so badly, Howard hands Jack one of the men's testicles to send to Rakes. The following morning, Rakes hears a knock on his door and goes out with his gun to investigate. He doesn't find anyone at the door, but he finds a perfectly wrapped gift lying on the floor. On opening it, he finds a jar, which he quickly drops to the floor, realizing what it contains. For the next few weeks, Banner becomes a regular customer of the brothers. Jack and Cricket have also officially joined the team and are now allowed to do deliveries despite the police chase and the dangers associated. Meanwhile, Rakes did not back down. He found every single one of their stills and destroyed them, at least until the brothers decided to invest their profits into setting up a larger still into the woods. During that time, Cricket also buffed up their engines and redefined their vehicles to make them faster and more durable than the cops. Let's also not forget that Jack kept going after Bertha, even if it meant being chased away by her father every single time. Meanwhile, all the other bootleggers, except the Bondurant cousin Spoons, caved in and made deals with Wardell. Spoons was then tortured and properly dealt with by Rakes. One night, Maggie, who has also developed a liking for Forrest, gets fed up with having Forrest watch her at night, but can't do anything. She enters his room and makes love to him, confirming their affection for each other. The next morning, the Bondurants wake up to meet the half-dead body of Spoons covered with feathers sent by rakes. Meanwhile, Jack goes to see Bertha in his new ride and manages to convince her to come along with him.
It sure goes fast.
He gives her a beautiful dress, which she claims she can't wear to any occasion because of her father's position, but Jack offers to take her to occasions where she can flaunt the gown. He then asks her to put it on, before taking her through the woods to show her their secret operation. Unknown to him, they're being watched by Rakes, who immediately follows them to the hideout with backup. Cricket is not comfortable with Jack bringing Bertha, but Jack feels like he's doing the right thing. And of course, what other way to show off to his girlfriend than this? While they're exchanging pleasantries, Rakes and his officers ambush the place.
Go to the station, I'll meet you there. Go.
Jack tells Cricket to leave with Bertha and meet him at the station and runs the opposite way to draw their attention. Luckily for him, Howard, who happens to be around, helps him take out some of the men, giving them a chance to escape. While they might have escaped, Cricket and Bertha get caught by the cops. Bertha is taken home while Rakes asks Cricket to come with him. Rakes then takes him to a secluded area where he snaps Cricket's neck. Subsequently, the whole place gets blown up by the cops. At the station, Jack tries to apologize for his recklessness, but Forrest has had enough. While Jack is being reprimanded, Howard comes to break the news that Cricket passed away, which throws Jack off balance. A funeral is held for Cricket afterward, during which Jimmy, one of the bootleggers, tries to sympathize with Forrest, but Forrest tells him off for striking a deal with Wardell and selling them off in the first place. Jack is devastated and probably wishes he could do something to avenge Cricket. He sits in Cricket's car the rest of the night, and the following morning, he stares at Cricket's photo with anger in his heart when he hears a horn from downstairs. Jack rushes downstairs to investigate who their visitor is, while Forrest watches from the window. It's the sheriff, who asks to see Forrest, but Jack tells him that he will pass the message to him. The sheriff then informs Jack that he and his officers had nothing to do with what happened to Cricket, as they all know that Cricket is a good boy. The sheriff also warns Jack that Rakes has set up a blockade at the bridge to get the brothers, while Wardell is arranging for a prohibition agent to round up all the bootleggers in the county. Without thinking twice, Jack grabs his gun and leaves with Cricket's car to confront Rakes. Howard notices and quickly goes to get Forrest so they can go after him.
I gotta find you lying in a pool of your own blood.
But Maggie doesn't approve of this rash decision, claiming that she doesn't want to watch him put his life on the line again. She reveals to Forrest that she was the one who drove him down to the hospital after he was attacked, and Forrest realizes that she was assaulted by those men if truly he has returned that night. Still, Maggie denies it, but Forrest already knows the truth. Meanwhile, Jack arrives at the bridge, where he gets shot by Rakes before he can react. Howard and Forrest then arrive, and a shootout ensues between the cops and the brothers. During the shootout, Forrest and their driver get shot, but the driver is fatally wounded. As the sheriff tries to calm the situation down by asking the men to stand down, the other bootleggers arrive and hold the cops at gunpoint. Rakes ignores them and still shoots Forrest several times, but as a result, he gets shot in the leg by the sheriff, who's trying to make peace. But seeing as Forrest is down, the bootleggers open fire at Rakes, who escapes into the bridge. Jack gets annoyed and grabs Forrest's gun before going after Rakes. Howard follows him as well. Meanwhile, Rakes is unable to go far because of his injured leg. Jack catches up to him and shoots him, but seeing as he's still alive, Howard finishes him off with a stab from behind. Around December, the prohibition ended, with Wardell's arrest based on corruption charges. Meanwhile, the Bondurants have settled down with Jack married to Bertha, Forrest to Maggie, and Howard to a Martinsville woman. All three brothers now working legally. During a reunion at Jack's house about a decade later,
I didn't walk it off.
Forrest drunkenly walks to a frozen lake and falls into the freezing water. Although he drags himself out, he later passes away of pneumonia, laying rest to the legend of his indestructibility. And this is the end. This was a recap of the 2012 movie Lawless by Australian singer-screenwriter Nick Cave, starring Shia LaBeouf, Tom Hardy, Gary Oldman, Mia Wasikowska, Jessica Chastain, Jason Clarke, and Guy Pearce. So what do you think of the Bondurant brothers? And do you think Cricket would have survived if Jack had tried to be less careless? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below with #CinemaRecap. Until next time.